In a small village, there lived a kind and beautiful girl named Cinderella. She lived with her wicked stepmother and two stepsisters, who made her do all the housework. Despite her hardships, Cinderella always remained hopeful and kind. One day, a royal messenger arrived in the village with exciting news. The prince was hosting a grand ball at the palace, inviting all the young ladies of the kingdom. The stepmother and stepsisters were thrilled, but Cinderella knew she wouldn't be allowed to go. Cinderella helped her stepsisters get ready for the ball, sewing their dresses and fixing their hair. They laughed at her when she asked if she could go. "You? Go to the ball? Impossible," they said. They left Cinderella alone in the house, feeling sad and forgotten. After her stepmother and stepsisters left for the ball, Cinderella sat by the fireplace and began to cry. She wished she could go to the ball, too. Suddenly, a soft light filled the room, and a kind voice spoke. "Why are you crying, my dear?" Cinderella looked up and saw a magical fairy standing before her. "I'm your fairy godmother," she said. "And you, my dear, will go to the ball tonight." With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother began to work her magic. The fairy godmother turned a pumpkin into a golden carriage, 6 mice into beautiful horses, and a rat into a coachman. She then waved her wand over Cinderella, and her rags transformed into a dazzling gown, and on her feet appeared glass slippers that sparkled like stars. "You must remember," the fairy godmother warned, "the magic will only last until midnight. After that, everything will return to how it was." Cinderella nodded, thanked her fairy godmother, and climbed into the carriage, excited for the ball. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, everyone was amazed by her beauty. The prince noticed her immediately and asked her to dance. Cinderella and the prince twirled across the ballroom floor, and she felt as if she were in a dream. Cinderella and the prince danced the night away. Her heart was light, and she completely forgot about the time. Everyone in the ballroom watched them, mesmerized by how perfect they looked together. Cinderella had never been so happy. Suddenly, the clock began to chime. It was midnight. Remembering the fairy godmother's warning, Cinderella panicked and fled from the palace before the prince could stop her. As she ran, one of her glass slippers slipped off, but she didn't have time to pick it up. The next day, the prince ordered his servants to search the kingdom for the owner of the glass slipper. He knew the girl who fit the slipper was the one he had danced with and the one he wanted to marry. When Cinderella's stepmother heard about the prince's search, she locked Cinderella in her room. She hoped that one of her daughters would fit the slipper and marry the prince instead. But neither of the stepsisters' feet fit. As the prince's servant was about to leave, Cinderella managed to escape from her room and asked if she could try on the slipper. The stepmother and stepsisters laughed, but the servant allowed her to try. Cinderella carefully slid her foot into the slipper, and it fit perfectly. The servant smiled and knew she was the one. Cinderella was overjoyed, and the prince was summoned to meet her. The prince recognized Cinderella right away, even without her gown. He asked her to marry him, and she happily said yes. Her stepmother and stepsisters were shocked, but Cinderella forgave them for their cruelty.